The midnight mishap. The blue glow of her laptop screen cast shadows across Olivia Bennett's apartment as the clock ticked past midnight. 3 empty coffee cups stood as sentinels beside her keyboard, testament to the 14-hour workday she'd just endured. As Meridian Publishing's senior graphic designer, Olivia had spent the day redesigning an entire marketing campaign after the client rejected their initial concept, with a deadline that hadn't moved an inch. Her fingers paused over the keyboard as she contemplated the email she'd started to her sister Penelope. This wasn't just venting. It was an existential crisis packaged in Times New Roman. "Dear Pen," she typed, backspacing over the greeting to make it less formal. "It's officially been 103 days since I've had a full weekend off. The new management keeps talking about optimization and streamlining processes, which apparently means I do the work of 3 people while they cut the design department's budget. Today I had to smile through a client meeting where they called my designs uninspired after they rejected every creative concept I pitched last week." Olivia's fingers flew across the keyboard, her frustrations pouring out in a stream of consciousness that ranged from professional grievances to deeper questions. She wrote about feeling stuck in a creative rut, about wondering if she'd ever finish her personal portfolio, about the dating app she'd deleted after 3 disastrous first dates in a row. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm invisible," she continued, not in some teenage angsty way, but truly. "Do people see me or just what I can produce for them? There's this hollowness to success when it feels like you're just ticking boxes on someone else's checklist. I keep thinking about Dad's advice before he passed, that a creative life should feel like breathing, not drowning. Right now, I'm definitely underwater." She paused, took a sip of cold coffee, and added, "But don't worry about me. I'm just exhausted and being melodramatic. Tomorrow I'll wake up, put on my big girl clothes, and keep swimming. Love you to the moon. Live." Olivia's eyes blurred with fatigue as her finger hovered over the send button. The company had recently migrated to a new email system after the acquisition by Prism Technologies. The autocomplete function on the recipient field had filled in what looked like her sister's address. She clicked send and closed her laptop with a satisfying thunk. Too exhausted to notice the PW, her bleary eyes had registered wasn't Penelope Williams, but Preston Wells. The formal email address of Harrison Preston Wells, the notoriously private tech mogul who had acquired Meridian 3 months ago. Sleep came instantly that night, a dreamless void that ended all too soon with the harsh chirp of her alarm. Olivia shuffled through her morning routine on autopilot, arriving at the sleek glass Meridian building with 2 minutes to spare before the 8 a.m. department meeting. She settled into her cubicle afterward, powering up her computer and absently clicking on her email while sipping her latte. A message at the top of her inbox made her freeze mid-sip, from Preston Wells, prismtech.com. Subject, no subject. Olivia blinked, the fog of morning instantly evaporating as adrenaline flooded her system. With trembling fingers, she clicked open the email. "Ms. Bennett, I believe this was not intended for me. However, having received it, I cannot in good conscience ignore the concerns you've raised about your workload and the current state of the design department at Meridian. Contrary to what might be the standard corporate response, I won't pretend that optimization doesn't sometimes lead to unreasonable demands on talented individuals. What I find more compelling than your critique of management, which, fair enough, includes me by extension, is your question about visibility versus productivity. 4B. What it's worth, I've reviewed your portfolio on the company server. Your work isn't just seen, it's remarkable. The Lantern Press campaign in particular showed exceptional creativity within stringent brand constraints. I would appreciate a more detailed assessment of the design department's current challenges when you have time, and perhaps your thoughts on what breathing rather than drowning might look like in practice. Regards, H. Wells." Olivia read the email 3 times, her heart pounding against her ribs. She hadn't been fired. She hadn't even been reprimanded. Instead, the enigmatic billionaire, a man whose rare photos showed a stern-faced figure with piercing eyes and a reputation for ruthless efficiency, had responded with unexpected thoughtfulness. She glanced around the office, suddenly paranoid that someone might be watching her reaction. But the day continued as normal. Designers hunched over tablets, the steady tap of keyboards, the distant hum of the air conditioning. No one rushing to escort her from the building. Olivia closed the email and stared at her screen, unsure whether to be mortified or intrigued. One thing was certain: her ordinary life had just become anything but. Pixels and paragraphs. For 3 days, Olivia's email to Harrison Wells remained unanswered. She had crafted what she believed was a professional, measured response, acknowledging her inappropriate venting while providing the requested department assessment. She'd spent 6 hours on it, scrutinizing every word, toggling between formal analysis and candid observations. But as the silence stretched, anxiety gnawed at her confidence. Perhaps it had been a test she'd failed. Or worse, his momentary interest had evaporated upon reading her thorough critique of the company's creative bottlenecks. On Wednesday evening, as the office emptied and shadows lengthened across her desk, her computer chimed. A new email. Olivia, your assessment was illuminating. I particularly appreciated the distinction you drew between efficiency and creative suffocation. You're right that algorithms can't quantify the value of contemplative space in design work. I've been in Tokyo this week, hence the delayed response. It's 3 a.m. here, and I find myself wondering about your father's advice. My own father spoke only of measurable outcomes and competitive advantages. Perhaps that's why Prism's interfaces are functional, but as one reviewer put it, soulless. What does breathing feel like in your creative process? Harrison. The formality had slipped, Olivia noticed immediately. Not H. Wells, but Harrison. Not regards, but a question, a personal one. She hesitated only briefly before replying. Their correspondence evolved over the following weeks. By day, Olivia continued her work, now with the strange knowledge that the company's owner had seen her at her most vulnerable and most professional. By night, their exchanges deepened, straying beyond workplace matters into literature, art, philosophy. Harrison wrote about the loneliness of success, the weight of others' expectations, the family legacy he simultaneously honored and resented. Olivia shared her creative frustrations, her grief over her father's passing, her struggle to find authentic connection in a world of superficial interactions. I attended a gallery opening last night, she wrote one evening. The artist captured urban isolation brilliantly, figures surrounded by crowds but enclosed in translucent bubbles. I stood there thinking how similar it felt to working in an open office where everyone wears headphones, physically present, mentally elsewhere, except when writing to you. These messages feel like the opposite, physically distant but mentally present. His reply came quickly. I've been thinking about presence lately. In meetings, people hang on my words while simultaneously calculating how to use them to their advantage. In these messages, there's no performance, just thoughts exchanged in the dark. I find myself looking forward to them more than I should admit. Meanwhile, rumors swirled through Meridian about impending changes. The marketing director was replaced. The editorial department underwent a restructuring. The design team watched nervously as consultants toured their floor, making notes and asking pointed questions about workflows. Tamara, Olivia's closest work friend, leaned over her cubicle one afternoon. Word is they're gutting our department next, she whispered. Shipping everything to the Philippines team. Olivia frowned. Where did you hear that? Javier in finance. His brother-in-law works for the consulting firm. They're presenting final recommendations to Preston Wells himself next week. The name sent an electric current through Olivia. She hadn't mentioned their correspondence to anyone. What would she even say? That she accidentally emailed the CEO her personal journal entry, and now they discussed Kafka and childhood memories at midnight? That evening, she stared at her screen longer than usual before writing. I heard rumors today that the design department is being outsourced. I know corporate decisions are complex and not personal, but the people here are talented and dedicated even while overworked. If changes are coming, they deserve transparency. She hesitated, then added, I realize this crosses a boundary in our conversations. Feel free to ignore it. Hours passed, with no response. Olivia tossed in bed, regretting her impulsiveness. Of course, he wouldn't discuss business decisions with a random employee he'd been having friendly conversations with. She'd misinterpreted their connection, fabricating intimacy where there was merely unusual courtesy. The next morning, a company-wide email announced an all-staff meeting. Olivia's stomach clenched as she filed into the conference room with her colleagues, avoiding Tamara's knowing look. The CFO began with corporate platitudes about evolving market dynamics and strategics repositioning. Olivia half listened, her thoughts churning, until a tall figure entered from a side door. The room hushed immediately. Harrison Wells was not what Olivia had expected. The severe, cold-eyed man from news photographs appeared instead with slightly rumpled dark hair and subtle shadows beneath intense gray eyes that suggested his own late nights. He wore no tie, his white shirt open at the collar beneath a charcoal suit. "Good morning," he said, his deep voice resonating without need for a microphone. "I'll be direct. The consultants recommended outsourcing creative functions to reduce costs by 28%. Beside Olivia, Tamara stiffened. Murmurs rippled through the room. "I've rejected that recommendation," Harrison continued. "Instead, we're doubling the design department's budget and bringing production of 3 imprints back in-house from contractors." Stunned silence gave way to confused whispers. Meridian's strength has always been its creative vision. Data shows our most profitable titles feature distinctive design that enhances content rather than merely packaging it. We need more creative breathing space, not less. His gaze swept the room, pausing almost imperceptibly on Olivia. "Details will follow from your department heads. Thank you for your continued dedication." He exited as abruptly as he'd arrived, leaving a wake of confused excitement. "Did that just happen?" Tamara breathed. "Breathing space?" He literally used those words. Olivia nodded mutely, her pulse racing. That evening, a new email waited. "Olivia, the consultants were wrong. Their models measured efficiency without understanding value. Sometimes the least quantifiable elements matter most. On a different note, I'll be working from the Meridian offices next week for the quarterly review. Would you consider meeting in person? Perhaps coffee to discuss the new design initiatives?" Olivia, stared at the screen, her finger hovering over the keyboard. Their digital sanctuary had allowed a connection across professional boundaries and personal barriers. Meeting face-to-face would make this, whatever this was, real in ways both thrilling and terrifying. After long minutes of deliberation, she typed her response, "Yes." Interface. The executive floor of Meridian Publishing occupied the 17th story, a realm of polished wood and hushed conversations that most employees glimpsed only during annual reviews. Olivia's palms dampened as the elevator ascended, her reflection in its mirrored walls betraying her nervousness. She'd changed outfits 3 times that morning, settling on a structured burgundy dress that felt both professional and distinctive. "Just coffee," she reminded herself as the doors opened. A business discussion about design initiatives. But her racing heart knew better. After 6 weeks of late-night messages, she and Harrison had exchanged confidences that transcended professional boundaries. She knew about his strained relationship with his brilliant, cold father. He knew about her childhood in foster care before the Bennetts adopted her. They'd shared book recommendations, debated films, and revealed insecurities visible to no one else. "Ms. Bennett?" A poised executive assistant greeted her. "Mr. Wells is on a call. He asked if you'd mind waiting in the conference room." The conference room offered a panoramic view of the city, autumn sunlight glinting off distant skyscrapers. Olivia stood at the window, her back to the door, gathering her composure. "It looks different from up here, doesn't it?" The voice, familiar from company presentations but warmer than she expected, made her turn. Harrison Wells stood in the doorway, tall and imposing in a navy suit, his dark hair slightly windswept as though he'd been running his fingers through it. In person, the intensity she'd glimpsed at the all-staff meeting was even more apparent, his gray eyes sharply observant. "The city or the company?" she asked, surprised by her own steadiness. A smile touched the corner of his mouth. Both, I suppose. The awkwardness Olivia had feared dissolved as they settled at the table with coffee. Harrison was more reserved than his email suggested, choosing words with careful precision, but unmistakably the same person who had written to her about childhood memories of stargazing and admitted to feeling like an imposter despite his success. Your team's initial concepts for the spring catalog are remarkable, he said, pulling up digital mock-ups on a tablet. Particularly this treatment for the Fletcher biography. That was actually Tamara's design, Olivia corrected. She has an exceptional eye for typography. Harrison studied her. You credit your colleagues readily. That's rare in creative fields. Good design is collaborative, she replied. My father, my adoptive father, taught ceramics. He always said his best pieces emerged when his students challenged his assumptions. Their conversation shifted easily between professional matters and personal reflections, the distinction blurring as minutes stretched into an hour. Neither mentioned their emails explicitly, yet the foundation they'd built informed every exchange. As their meeting concluded, Harrison hesitated. There's a gallery opening tomorrow evening. The artist explores digital disconnection in the modern age. Given our conversations, I thought you might find it interesting. Olivia felt heat rise to her cheeks. Are you inviting me? Yes, he said simply. Not as a Meridian employee. The implications hung between them, weighty and exhilarating. I'd like that, she finally answered. The next evening transformed their connection again. Away from Meridian's corporate structure, Harrison appeared more relaxed, his usual guardedness softening as they wandered through the gallery. Their discussions of the artwork led to deeper conversations, punctuated by moments of unexpectedly easy laughter. Over dinner afterward at a small Italian restaurant, Harrison spoke about his vision for Prism and Meridian. Technology without humanity is just machinery, he said. I built Prism focusing solely on innovation. Now I'm trying to balance that with meaning. Is that why you bought a publishing house? Books are fundamentally human. He considered her question thoughtfully. Partly, but I also needed to step outside the echo chamber of tech, to reconnect with creativity that isn't algorithmic. His gaze met hers. To find perspectives like yours. The weeks that followed brought a gradual integration of their digital and physical worlds. Formal meetings about Meridian projects provided legitimate reasons to interact professionally, while private dinners and gallery visits deepened their personal connection. Harrison revealed a dry wit beneath his serious demeanor. Olivia discovered the vulnerability behind his carefully constructed public image, yet complications inevitably emerged. Rumors spread through Meridian about their association, despite their discretion. Olivia overheard whispers in the break room, insinuations that her department's favored status stemmed from personal, rather than professional considerations. Sleeping her way to creative director, someone muttered when they thought she couldn't hear. The comment stung with unfairness. Her work had always spoken for itself, her professional advancement earned through talent and dedication. But perception created its own reality, and the power imbalance between them was undeniable. Harrison noticed her withdrawal. You seem distant, he observed during a working dinner in his office. Has something happened? Olivia set down her fork. People are talking. About us. It wasn't a question. About me, specifically. Questioning my professional credibility. Harrison's expression darkened. I can address that. That would only confirm their suspicions. She sighed. This is exactly why workplace relationships are complicated, especially with such uneven power dynamics. Is that what this is? A relationship? The question hung between them, demanding definition for what had remained deliberately undefined. Before Olivia could respond, Harrison's phone buzzed with a notification. His expression changed as he read the message, subtle alarm replacing openness. What is it? She asked. Nothing urgent. He set the phone down with deliberate casualness. You were saying? But the moment had passed, and their conversation reverted to safer topics. As they parted that evening, Olivia sensed a new guardedness in Harrison's manner, a return to the professional distance that had characterized their early interactions. The next morning, she understood why. Exiting the elevator, she found the office in barely contained chaos. Tamara intercepted her immediately, pulling her into the supply closet. "Have you seen it?" Tamara thrust her phone into Olivia's hands. On screen was a business news website with the headline, "Prism CEO's Secret Emails, Business Strategy or Romance." The article quoted fragments from their earliest exchanges, her midnight confession, his responses about the design department's value. Presented without context, the messages suggested impropriety at best, corporate decisions influenced by personal entanglement at worst. "The board has called an emergency meeting," Tamara whispered. "Javier says they're questioning whether Wells is fit to lead if he's making business decisions based on, well, you." Olivia felt the floor tilt beneath her. What had been precious and private was now twisted into corporate scandal. Worse, the article implied she had strategically cultivated Harrison's interest to protect her department, the exact opposite of what had happened. Her phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number. "My office, now. H." Harrison's expression was granite when she entered, his assistant closing the door behind her with palpable disapproval. "Eleanor Vance," he said without preamble, "Chief Operating Officer at Nexus Publishing. They bid against us for Meridian last year. Her team is behind the leak. How did they get our emails?" "A security breach being investigated." He paced behind his desk. "The board is concerned about governance issues, about my judgment." The subtext was clear. She was a liability. Their connection, whatever it had been becoming, was now a corporate problem to solve. "What do you need from me?" Olivia asked quietly. Harrison stopped pacing, his expression unreadable. "Distance, publicly and privately, until this is resolved." The clinical detachment in his voice cut deeper than anger would have. This was the businessman speaking, not the man who had shared his thoughts in the darkness. "I understand," she said, professionalism masking the hurt. "I'll have my updated portfolio on your assistant's desk by the end of the day." His brow furrowed. "Portfolio? For my resignation letter. That's where this is heading, isn't it?" "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to." She straightened her shoulders. "I built my career on my creativity and integrity. I won't stay where either is questioned." As she turned to leave, Harrison called after her. "Olivia." She paused at the door, not turning back. "I never meant for this to happen," he said, his composed facade cracking slightly. "Neither did I," she replied. That was the beauty of it. The door closed softly behind her as she left, her footsteps steady despite the collapse occurring within. System crash. The West Side Cafe hummed with Saturday morning energy, the clatter of plates and murmur of conversations creating a protective bubble of anonymity. Olivia wrapped her hands around a steaming mug, grateful for the warmth against her chilled fingers. November had arrived with biting winds and gray skies that matched her mood. "You're torturing yourself," Penelope said, sliding into the seat across from her. Her sister's practical nature was evident in her no-nonsense haircut and direct gaze. 3 weeks of hiding in your apartment is enough." "I'm not hiding," Olivia protested. "I'm freelancing, from your couch in sweatpants, the industry standard uniform for independent designers." Penelope's expression softened. "Have you heard anything from him?" The question punctured Olivia's carefully maintained composure. Diary. The 3 weeks since her resignation from Meridian, Harrison had made no attempt to contact her. The scandal had faded from business news as quickly as it had erupted, replaced by fresh corporate dramas and market fluctuations. "No," she admitted, "but I didn't expect to. The situation was complicated." "Complicated is your specialty." Penelope reached across the table to squeeze her hand. "But you deserve better than being collateral damage in someone else's corporate chess game." Olivia nodded, though inwardly she questioned whether the assessment was fair. She'd seen genuine, Conflict in Harrison's eyes that day in his office. The businessman at war with the man she'd come to know through their correspondence. But in the end, the businessman had prevailed, as he had undoubtedly done throughout his meteoric rise. The design firm called, she said, changing the subject. They want to see more samples for their rebranding pitch. That's great. Penelope brightened. See? Your talent speaks for itself. No corporate ladder required. As they finished breakfast, a notification lit up Olivia's phone. An email from an unfamiliar address, subject line blank. Her pulse quickened as she opened it. This isn't what I wanted. 5 words that reopened everything she'd been trying to close. Olivia stared at the screen until Penelope waved a hand before her face. Earth to live. What is it? Nothing important, she lied, tucking the phone away. Just a client question. Later, alone in her apartment, Olivia read the message repeatedly, analyzing each word for hidden meanings. After hours of internal debate, she composed a reply. What did you want? His response came at midnight as though he'd been waiting. A chance to explain. Coffee tomorrow? Your choice of location. The cafe she selected was far from Meridian, a small place in her neighborhood where business executives rarely ventured. Harrison arrived punctually, looking both out of place in his tailored coat and somehow diminished. The confident authority she remembered replaced by uncertainty. They sat in a corner booth, the initial silence between them filled with unspoken recriminations and questions. Eleanor Vance has been removed from Nexus Publishing's board, Harrison finally said. The email hack was more extensive than initially reported. Corporate espionage charges are pending. Is that meant to make me feel better? No. He met her, gazed directly. It's context, not consolation. Why am I here, Harrison? The directness of her question surprised even herself. He hesitated, choosing his words with characteristic precision. Because I've spent 3 weeks realizing that in trying to protect the company, I sacrificed something more valuable. Your reputation? My integrity. His hands clasped tightly on the table. And someone I'd come to care about deeply. The admission hung between them, both too much and not enough. Olivia's expression remained guarded. The board was pressuring me to distance myself, he continued. The optics were damaging. But I could have handled it differently, should have handled it differently. You made a business decision, Olivia said. That's what successful executives do. It was the wrong decision. The rawness in his voice caught her off guard. I've made my career prioritizing outcomes over processes, results over relationships. It's efficient, but ultimately hollow. A server arrived with their coffee, providing a moment to gather thoughts. When she left, Olivia spoke carefully. Even if you handled it badly, the underlying problem remains. Your position gave you power I didn't have. Our connection was built on an uneven foundation. Yes, he acknowledged. That's why I've made some changes. He explained that he had restructured his role at Prism, stepping back from day-to-day operations to focus on strategic vision while elevating the executive team. At Meridian, he had appointed a respected industry veteran as CEO, removing himself from direct management. The board wasn't thrilled, he admitted, but after the security breach, they accepted my argument for organizational restructuring. You did all this because of what happened? Olivia asked incredulously. No, Harrison replied. I did it because of what I learned from you, about creativity requiring freedom, about leadership meaning more than control, about connection being more valuable than achievement. His gaze held hers. The timing was accelerated by circumstances, but the direction was set the moment I read your midnight email. Outside, rain began to fall, streaking the cafe windows and casting watery shadows across their table. The intimate atmosphere intensified their isolation from the world beyond. I miss our conversations, he said quietly. The honesty, the discovery. I miss them too, Olivia admitted. But they existed in a bubble. Reality is messier. Reality is what we make it. He leaned forward. I'm not asking you to return to Meridian. You're building your independent career brilliantly. The Westlake Museum Commission proves that. She blinked in surprise. How did you know about that? I follow your work, he said simply. From a respectful distance, the rain intensified, drumming against the windows. Harrison continued, I'm asking if we might start again. Not as CEO and employee. Not even as Harrison and Olivia yet. Just as two people who once found unexpected connection and might rediscover it on equal terms. The sincerity in his voice was unmistakable, yet Olivia hesitated. The hurt of those weeks remained fresh. Not just his withdrawal, but the professional reputation she'd had to rebuild. The whispers she knew continued in her absence. I don't know if we can erase what happened, she said finally. I'm not asking to erase it. I'm asking if we can learn from it. He reached across the table, his hand stopping short of hers. No pressure, no expectations, just possibility. Their coffee grew cold as the conversation deepened. Harrison spoke about the soul-searching her absence had prompted, the recognition of patterns established in his driven climb to success. Olivia shared her own reflections on independence and vulnerability, on creating boundaries while allowing genuine connection. As afternoon faded toward evening, the weight between them gradually lightened. No resolutions were reached, no promises exchanged, but a door left deliberately ajar. Walking her home under a shared umbrella, Harrison stopped at the entrance to her building. Thank you for listening, he said. Whatever comes next, that meant everything. Olivia studied his face. The intensity she'd first noticed now tempered with something like wisdom. One step at a time, she replied, neither acceptance nor rejection. He nodded, understanding the measured response. Good night, Olivia. She watched him walk away, a solitary figure in the rain-washed street, before turning toward her apartment. Inside, she opened her laptop and began a new document. Not an email this time, but the beginnings of a personal project she'd abandoned months earlier. The creative impulse that had been dampened by recent events flickered back to life. Whether it was closure or new beginning, something had shifted within her. She worked through the night, not from obligation but inspiration, finding her way back to the artistic voice that had been momentarily silenced. By dawn, Olivia had completed the first phase of a design concept that spoke to connection and distance, to digital intimacy and real-world complexity. Looking at her creation in the pale morning light, she recognized it as both ending and prologue, a visual articulation of transformation still unfolding. Whatever happened with Harrison, she had reclaimed her narrative. The mistaken email that had altered her professional trajectory had ultimately led her back to her authentic, creative voice. The irony wasn't lost on her as she finally slept, her dreams for once untroubled by what had been lost and open to what might yet be found. Reboot spring arrived in the city with characteristic caprice. Brilliant sunshine one day, chilling rain the next. 4 months had passed since Olivia's cafe meeting with Harrison, a period of purposeful distance as each rebuilt their worlds, separately. For Olivia, transformation had come through immersion in her work. The Westlake Museum Commission had led to others, her distinctive design aesthetic attracting clients who valued innovation over convention. She had converted her apartment's second bedroom into a proper studio, hired an assistant, and established a reputation as an independent creative force. On this particular April morning, she navigated the crowded sidewalks toward the Whitman gallery where her first solo exhibition was opening that evening. Digital Intimacy featured a series of interactive installations exploring connection in the technological age, work directly influenced by her experience with Harrison, though few would recognize the specific inspiration. The lighting installer has questions about the third piece, her assistant Julian reported by phone as Olivia approached the gallery. Something about calibration for the motion sensors. Tell him I'll be there in 5 minutes, she replied, quickening her pace. The gallery hummed with pre-opening activity, technicians adjusting lighting, assistants arranging refreshments, the curator reviewing final placement details. Olivia's central installation, Correspondence, dominated the main room. a series of transparent screens displaying fragmentary text that responded to viewers' movements, creating unique narrative combinations with each interaction. After resolving the technical issues, Olivia retreated to a quiet corner to review her remarks for the evening. The exhibition represented not just artistic achievement but personal reckoning, her transformation of private experience into universal exploration of how technology both facilitates and complicates human connection. It's powerful work. The voice behind her was instantly recognizable. Olivia turned to find Harrison standing a respectful distance away, more casually dressed than she remembered in dark jeans and a gray sweater. The corporate armor had been shed, though his inherent intensity remained. "I didn't expect to see you until tonight," she said, recovering from her surprise, if at all. "I received the invitation." He approached cautiously, "But I wanted to see the exhibition before the crowds, to experience it as it's meant to be experienced." During their months apart, they had maintained minimal contact, occasional text messages, brief updates that acknowledged connection without presumption. Olivia had followed news of Harrison's professional evolution, his reduced role at Prism, his foundation supporting arts education, his surprising emergence as an advocate for ethical technology development. "May I?" He gestured toward the installation. Olivia nodded, watching as he moved through the space, interacting thoughtfully with each element. The fragments of text, some original, some borrowed from literature, shifted and combined as he moved, creating ephemeral narratives that dissolved and reformed continuously. "You've captured it perfectly," he said finally, turning back to her. "The paradox of digital connection, both intimate and distant, revealing and concealing simultaneously. That was the intention." "It's autobiographical, isn't it?" His perception had always been disconcertingly accurate. Not literally, but essentially. Art usually is, in some form. They stood in companionable silence, the awkwardness of their cafe reunion replaced by something more comfortable. "I'm leaving Prism," Harrison said eventually. "Completely." The announcement startled her. "When?" "The transition begins next month. My successor is already shadowing me." "Why?" Olivia asked. "You built that company from nothing." Harrison considered the question carefully. "Because creation shouldn't become possession. Because innovation requires freedom from past achievements." His eyes met hers. "Because I'm ready for a second act." The gallery assistant appeared, apologetically interrupting to address final preparations. Harrison nodded, understanding. "Tonight, then," he said to Olivia. "I look forward to celebrating your achievement properly." The exhibition opening exceeded expectations, the gallery packed with critics, collectors, and fellow artists. Olivia moved through the crowd in a midnight blue dress that complemented the exhibition's color palette, discussing her creative process and accepting congratulations with gracious composure. Harrison arrived midway through the evening, hanging back observantly, rather than commanding attention. When they eventually converged near the central installation, their interaction drew curious glances from those familiar with the previous year's business news stories. "The Times critic was impressed," Harrison noted. "She called your work a nuanced exploration of digital age vulnerability." "I saw that," Olivia smiled. "A welcome change from designing book covers. Do you miss it? Publishing?" "Parts of it," she admitted. "The collaborative energy, the connection to literature." A contemplative silence fell between them, filled with the ambient sounds of the successful event surrounding them. "I've been offered a visiting position at the Institute," Harrison said, "teaching the ethics of technology design. I start in the fall." "Teaching?" Olivia couldn't hide her surprise. "That's unexpected." "Is it?" A smile touched his eyes. "I seem to recall someone telling me that good design emerges when assumptions are challenged. I'm ready to be challenged, and to challenge others." As the evening wound down, Harrison helped the gallery staff rearrange furniture for a small post-opening reception. The casual assistants so at odds with his former CEO persona, drew Olivia's thoughtful observation. Later, as the last guest departed, they found themselves alone in the gallery's side garden, the spring night mild and fragrant with newly blooming flowers. "I've been working on something," Harrison said, breaking their comfortable silence. "A different kind of design project." "Oh?" Olivia's curiosity was piqued. "A foundation supporting independent artists, providing grants, studio, space, mentorship. No strings, no corporate agendas. That sounds wonderful. The thing is," he continued, "it needs a creative director, someone with both artistic vision and practical experience, someone who understands the balance between structure and creative freedom." Olivia's expression turned wary. "Harrison, it's not what you're thinking," he assured her quickly. "This isn't about us. It's about your exceptional talent and perspective. The board would make hiring decisions independently. I've structured it that way deliberately." "You're serious. Completely." He held her gaze. "No power imbalance. No reporting relationship. Just respect for what you bring to a worthy cause." Olivia considered the proposal, recognizing the careful thought behind it. "I'd want to maintain my independent practice." "Of course. Part-time involvement, complete creative autonomy. I'd need to see the organizational structure, the mission statement, the funding model, all ready for your review." His expression turned reflective. "One mistaken email taught me more than a decade of business success. About what matters. About how connection changes us if we let it." The phrase echoed their beginning, bringing the journey full circle. Olivia felt the significance of the moment. Not an ending, but a potential new configuration, grounded in mutual respect and shared purpose. "There's an all-night diner around the corner," she said. "Not very elegant, but they make decent coffee. We could discuss the foundation concept further." "I'd like that." As they walked through the quiet streets, conversation flowed easily between them, about art, philosophy, possibilities. The professional proposal created a bridge across which personal connection might eventually follow, neither rushed nor presumed, but permitted space to develop organically. In the diner's comfortable anonymity, Harrison spread documents across the table explaining his vision while genuinely incorporating Olivia's suggestions. Their collaborative energy felt both familiar and new. The digital intimacy of their early correspondence now translated into physical presence, with history acknowledged rather than erased. Dawn found them still talking, possibilities expanding, with the growing light. No declarations had been made, no romantic overtures attempted. Instead, something more fundamental had been established, a foundation of equality, of respect, of shared purpose. "I should get home," Olivia said eventually, gathering her exhibition notes. Harrison nodded, collecting the foundation documents. "Would you like to continue this discussion later? Perhaps dinner?" The question was casual, carefully balanced between professional and personal interest. Olivia considered him thoughtfully. "Yes," she decided. "I would." Outside, the city awakened. Around them, traffic increasing as early commuters began their day. They paused at the corner where their paths would diverge. "Congratulations again on the exhibition," Harrison said. "It's truly remarkable work." "Thank you," Olivia smiled. "For seeing it, really seeing it." The double meaning wasn't lost on either of them. As they parted, no promises had been made beyond dinner, no future guaranteed. Yet both carried away something precious, not the breathless intensity of their early connection nor the painful complexity of its unraveling, but something more sustainable, possibility rooted in authenticity. Olivia walked home through the spring morning, her mind already cycling through ideas for the foundation's visual identity. Her phone chimed with a message from Harrison, a dinner reservation for the following evening, with the simple addition, "No accidental emails required this time." She laughed, typing back, "Intentional is better." The exchange was light, yet Olivia recognized its significance. Their story had begun with technological mishap, but might continue through deliberate choice. Each step considered, each connection intentional. Whatever emerged would be built on stronger foundations than chance, informed by experience rather than blinded by novelty. In her apartment, Olivia opened her sketchbook and began designing a logo for the new foundation. The creative impulse flowed freely, uninhibited by corporate constraints or personal uncertainties. This, the freedom to create authentically, was what she had always sought. That Harrison had found his own path to similar revelation suggested not that one had changed the other, but that together they had discovered parallel truths. That meaningful connection requires both vulnerability and boundaries. That valuable work balances structure with creative freedom. That true intimacy, digital or otherwise, emerges not from circumstance but from choice. Whatever came next would be written not by accident or algorithm, but by deliberate engagement with possibility. As Olivia sketched, she felt neither the anxious anticipation of new romance nor the comfortable certainty of established connection, but something more intriguing. The open-ended potential of a story continuing beyond expected endpoints, finding its way towards something neither character could have imagined at the beginning. The mistaken email had been merely prologue. The real story, the one they might write together, was just beginning.